Hi, and welcome to the Let's Talk Melbourne podcast. I'm your host, Vikas Raheja. The Let's Talk Melbourne podcast is brought to you from the city of Melbourne, where we talk to business leaders, opinion makers, influencers, and change agents. This is a space for critical thinking, open discussions, and the big picture. This podcast is sponsored by Construct Mart and Floors Trading and Clearance Centre, your one-stop shop for all the floorings and renovations. Hello, and welcome to the second season of Let's Talk Melbourne podcast. Thank you firstly to everybody who tuned into season one. I cannot appreciate enough the love and support and the great feedback that I got for season one. And now we are excited to kick off season two and interview and talk to more amazing people from the city of Melbourne. And I'm really excited to kick off season two. We have a very special guest.
Oh, thank you.
I say this in every episode, but today I'm genuinely excited. And I'll tell you why in a minute. But before we jump into the conversation, may I request my guest to introduce herself?
Thank you very much. That was an amazing welcome. Hello, everyone. Hello. My name's Jayde Walker. I am the Director of Business Development at the Melbourne Symphony Orchestra. So my role there is really to help bring in commercial revenue to the MSO to help fund our artistic objectives. So sitting within my remit, I look after things like partnerships and sponsorships. I also look after things like special events. So if we're doing an event activation for a brand, corporate hospitality and ticketing packages for brands. And then I look at other incremental streams of revenue as well, or look at ways where we can strategically increase our revenue opportunities. So merchandise is one of those. So cool hats. I've got some great ideas. And I'm also doing some work with our marketing team on looking at how we can strengthen and solidify the MSO brand out there in market as a way of, increasing our commercial revenue down the track by attracting new audiences, by basically looking at how we position the MSO in the marketplace to bring in more eyeballs and more people.
Awesome. Now, I have to tell you, I know we were talking before this, I attended the Electric Fields concert at MSO, and I have to tell you, I was blown away by that concert. It was one of the best experiences I've had in Melbourne.
Thank you.
It was electrifying. People were dancing, singing, clapping. After a point, everyone was on their feet, and it sort of reminded me why Melbourne is Melbourne, because we all got into it. Everyone had a great time, and that really made everyone happy, and people were dancing and beaming. I want to ask you, did you expect that kind of response when you guys sort of planned the whole thing?
I'll be really honest. It was the concert you went to was the second year we did that concert. So the first year was 2022. I'm kind of like, what are the years? COVID really messed up what year I'm at. So the first year we did it was 2022, and I think we were just blown away with the response. I think 2022 for a lot of arts organisations was that real return to normal. Previously, our NAIDOC Week program had been a lot smaller. It had been more, talks and discussions, some musical acts. So the NAIDOC Week concert that we did in 22 was a really big week, big main stage performances. So we had Electric Fields and we had Spinifex Gum. Which was another incredible concert program that we did. And like you, I went to the first year. I was just amazed at how much Melbourne embraced the program, and not only that, how much they loved the program. At the end of the night, I turned around and saw the entirety of Hamer Hall up on their feet dancing, and I was just like, I've never seen this at an MSO concert in my life. So I think at that point we knew we had something really, really
Special.
special
Yep.
that the audience really loved and wanted to embrace and wanted to explore further.
Yeah.
And this year, our NAIDOC Week program was bigger again,
Yeah.
more main stage productions, and Electric Fields returned. And I think you can see that, lightning doesn't strike once. The response was even bigger. Again, you had people dancing.
Yeah.
So I think it was something that last year we took wanted to explore further, and it's paid off. It's made our NAIDOC Week a real tentpole program for the MSO.
And what an amazing! I think we have to do cheers to that. We're having
Thank
martinis,
you.
by the way. So cheers to MSO,
Cheers.
NATO
Thank you.
Electric
Thank you very
Fields,
much.
and the amazing indigenous music and arts and
Yes.
culture we have in our country.
Absolutely. It's incredible.
Cheers to
Cheers,
that.
everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you. Very good martini.
I know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Melbourne's own, again, Everly.
Exactly. We
Yes.
celebrate everything about Melbourne here.
Absolutely.
And now I'm sort of very fascinated by MSO as a cultural institution because it is. It's a cultural hub.
Yes.
Um, and some would argue that it's got like a niche audience, which I don't think is entirely true, but that's just my thing. I think you've got a varied audience.
We do have a varied audience.
But what does working for an organization like MSO mean to you personally? And how do you get into it? Like, did you always want it to be associated with, was it culture? Was it your skill set as in professional skill set that got you organically into it?
Wow, I think my entree into the MSO is a long and varied path. So buckle up. No, I won't bore everyone. So this is actually my first time working in the arts, true.
Okay.
And I've been there since 2019. I joined literally just before COVID, and have been with the MSO through some dark times and some great times. We're in recovery at the moment.
Yeah.
COVID obviously was not a good period for us.
Yeah.
I actually am from a media background.
Okay.
So my background was journalism. Then I went into publicity, and then I went into what is classed as integration. So I worked as a print journalist for a print newspaper. I worked as a publicist for 2 television networks, 7 and 9. Then I went into integration at Channel 7, which was all about it's basically response work for blue chip sales clients.
Gotcha.
So a client will come and say, we want an integrated response across all of these different channels. So it could be TV, could be magazine. Basically, I would work to pull that together and negotiate it.
Yep.
That led me to then go into marketing after nearly I think 15 years in media. I wanted to change, so I went into education. Then I went back to entertainment, and then I ended up at the MSO. So my background really has been media and entertainment.
Okay.
So not arts, true.
Yeah.
I have an interest in the arts, having been in the arts as a teenager and in my early 20s. I studied music. I learnt violin and piano. I danced. I got into musical theatre. So I sang in choirs. So I have had a bit of an arts background and always wanted to get into the arts.
Okay.
So my entree into arts was a mix of my professional background, which by the time I'd gotten to the MSO
Media experience
was
and stuff.
media and partnerships.
Yep.
And then my interests, which were with the arts, music, film, books.
That kind of thing.
So that's how I got into that. Yes, and here I am now.
What a journey.
What a journey, yes. So, I mean, I come from a perspective that, I've learnt music and I've learnt classical music. So in choir, I sang classical pieces, Latin madrigals, that kind of thing. But I'm not a classical, I guess, expert. Like, I'm not a classical music expert. There are people at work that are classical music experts, and I bow to their knowledge. I think what I have is an appreciation for the arts and an openness to learn more about the arts. The more I am at the MSO, the more I learn about classical music. And the more I find an appreciation for it. So now I'm sitting there going, okay, I really like Vaughan Williams. I need to explore more about him. I actually really more like modern compositions. I really like chamber. So I've started to learn a lot while I'm at the MSO, which has given me personally, an entree into a bit of a new world
World. Yep.
and an opportunity to explore a new world.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, it is. I
It is.
think one of the great things about the arts, and
Yep.
I think also about classical music, it gives you an opportunity to continuously learn. And I think if you're someone that loves culture and you love continuously learning,
Yep.
the classical music scene is a really great way
Great
to
way.
push
Yeah.
yourself. Yeah.
And it's. I mean, there is so much history and color to the entire spectrum of classical
Yeah,
music that we have.
absolutely.
Now, I have to ask you this question because, and I don't know if this is a fair question. So I recently
Go for it.
watched Tar, Todd
Oh,
Haynes,
so
Todd
did I.
Fields.
I watched it on the plane to Korea, and I was like, yeah.
How much of what's happening in that movie is actually
Oh,
true? Or
well, look, I actually not so much Tar, but there was a show that was on. I think it was Stan or Netflix called Mozart in the Jungle.
I did watch.
Yeah,
I watched
did
the
you watch
first
that?
few episodes. I mean, probably the first season. I didn't watch
Yeah,
most
look,
of them.
that's a very fanciful look, but
Yeah,
there are some things I'm like, yeah, yeah, I've experienced that. Sometimes I look at the Bernadette Peters
yeah,
character, I'm like, oh, I can kind of relate to you, Bernadette Peters. Look, Tar obviously takes the view of the conductor. Right.
correct. Yeah,
And I will be really honest. We have some really great conductors. We have the wonderful Ben Northey, who's our
yeah.
principal conductor in residence here, who's absolutely not like Lydia Tarr.
No, of course. I don't think that there are
Absolutely.
many conductors. Oh, who knows? I don't know.
No, no,
Yeah.
no. I think what it is a really good interpretation of is probably the stresses of the classical music
Gotcha.
world.
Yeah.
Um, I don't think anyone can really understand what it's like to be a professional creative at that level until you work with professional creatives at
Yeah.
that level. And the more I talk to musicians, the more I kind of learn more about their world.
Yeah.
These are people that have been studying and learning from a very early age to be the masters of their craft.
Correct. Yeah.
You've got people, and some of them say to me, like, oh, we can be really obsessive, it takes a certain type of person. It really does.
Yeah.
If you've ever learnt an instrument, you know how much practice it takes
Correct.
to really play that instrument to an adequate level, let alone an excellent level. So you've got people who are dedicated, who have spent a lot of their life practicing and fine tuning and are still doing that.
Yeah.
So I think what probably Tar did very well was probably talk about those stresses. I've never seen anyone like punch someone or tackle someone on stage, thankfully.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert. But it's not like that. But I think it encapsulates stress very well and
Yeah.
pressure.
And
Yeah.
also, I think, I mean, you got an appreciation of the hard work and of course you know that there's a lot of blood and sweat to stand whether you're a conductor or you're a pianist or you play the harp or whatever it may be. There's a lot that goes on to perform. I mean, that
Oh my
is
God,
it's
yes.
incredible.
Yes.
The commitment, physical, emotional, mental, that these artists have to do on a day-to-day basis.
And I really appreciate you bringing up the physical aspect because people often think of, physicality in terms of sports,
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
and players. I mean, you've got people, playing an instrument at an intense level.
Yeah.
Like there are some times when I say to the musicians, I really hope someone strapped like an Apple Watch or Fitbit onto you because I think you would have burnt like 10,000 calories. You've got people, who are doing crazy things with their bodies.
Yep.
You've got people that are sitting in chairs, for 2 hours a night doing all this
Doing
stuff,
all of that,
plus
yep.
practice. It is an intense physical pressure
Demanding.
on your
Yeah,
body.
yeah,
Look at the double bass.
Oh.
If you're a lady double bass player, you're carrying an instrument that is sometimes bigger
Bigger
than
than
you.
that, yeah.
That in itself is very physical. Cello players, I'll give you an example. When we go on tour, the cello comes on the plane with us. So the cellist actually takes the cello
Wow.
with him or her. The cello actually has its own dedicated seat next to you on the plane, so Mr. Cello sits next to the cello player. I mean that's a lot,
That's a lot. That's a lot.
struggle carrying my
Yeah.
bag
Yeah.
around, let alone a cello. So
Yeah.
there's a very physical element that people don't see behind the beauty of the music,
Music, yes.
and that is something that we are really aware about at the MSO. How do we put preventative health, at the forefront to make
Correct.
sure that our musicians are looked after?
Looked after.
Yeah.
No, that's important because And by the way, cello is my favorite
Oh,
instrument.
do you know? I think it was the number one instrument of the top 100 class. Don't quote me on this,
Yeah.
but from the dark recesses of my mind, I believe that cello was the number one instrument.
I love it.
Yeah, it's
I love it.
stunning.
I don't have a single bone in my body to play music, but to listen and appreciate music, I'm
Uh,
all for it. Yeah.
well, I believe we are doing Elgar's cello
Are
concerto
you
next year,
serious?
so you need to come and see
I
that.
absolutely going to be there. Hopefully, if I get tickets, they get sold out
Uh,
pretty quickly.
Look, I think we can work something out for you.
Thank you. I would appreciate that. Um, Now, I also want to ask you, one of the is from a and for my finance friends who suddenly at this point have forgotten what MSO is, it's Melbourne Symphony Orchestra.
Yes.
People who know MSO know they don't need introduction, but there are some
Yes.
of us in my industry who probably need to be reminded. So MSO is the Melbourne Symphony Orchestra. It's an iconic Melbourne institution. Is there an appetite? And I know that MSO does this. You invite international artists
Yes.
from time to time,
Yes.
and I know there's one that's coming in the next couple of months as well. That you've got a good lineup of international artists
Yes.
coming in.
Yes.
Is there any to get like collaboration like how Electric Fields and
Mm.
the orchestra had? Are there any such exciting combinations that you're thinking of
Mm.
that you can share, or is it on your wish list that
Oh
perhaps?
gosh, yes. Look, I mean, our chief conductor is a Spanish gentleman
Yeah.
called Jaime Martin, who works all over the world. He's based in London.
Okay.
I think there's a couple of ways. Obviously, you've got the reputation of the orchestra as well as the reputation of our chief
Chief
conductor
conductor. Yeah.
and our other conductors like Ben Northey as well.
Yeah.
That people are excited. They
Yeah.
want to come and work with. We have an amazing programming team, who work really hard going out talking to different agents, and bringing them over. Look, we are returning next year with the wonderful Tan Duan, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Tan Duan is an artistic ambassador of the
Yeah.
MSO, but unfortunately, in the last couple of years, he hasn't been able to come to
Yeah.
Australia. Due to a lot of the factors, COVID being one of them.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
There's been some pretty intense quarantine periods that a lot of
Def-
artists have had to deal with when coming to Australia in the last couple of years. Finally, they're lifting.
Yep.
So we're starting to see the return of international artists
Artists.
in
Yeah.
true this year.
Yeah.
And Tenduin's coming back next year, which we're pretty excited
That'd be
about.
exciting. Yeah.
I have not seen him ever live. Unfortunately, when I started in our Chinese New Year concert, which we usually collaborate with him on, was on COVID was happening,
Yeah.
so
Yeah. Yeah.
it just isn't doable. So I'm pretty excited to see him next year
Okay.
return. I feel like this has been a real moment of anticipation for me.
Of course. No.
Yeah.
That's. I mean, it's iconic. Like
Yeah.
it's phenomenal, right?
Exactly.
And if I have a wish list.
Yeah, tell me.
So
I'll
I'm just
pass it
putting
on
it
to the.
out there.
I'll pass it on to the programming team. I'll be like, look, yeah.
I mean, please get back
Is
Hans.
Lang Lang on it? Like,
Can be,
oh
yeah.
goodness, okay.
But please bring back Hans Zimmer.
Oh,
I'm a
okay.
massive Hans Zimmer fan. I was there when
Sure.
he was there, I think a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And I mean, anything Hans Zimmer does to me is just makes me happy.
Okay.
But, and I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly, Ludwig Göransson.
Ooh,
He's a musician now. He's just done music for Oppenheimer and then he
Okay.
did for Tenet.
yes.
He's a brilliant musician. I just to think of the collaboration between the orchestra and Ludwig Göransson, and
Yes.
this is going to be something special. So
yes.
it's on my wish list. I'm just putting it out there.
Okay,
and,
I mean, sure.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, done. No, I'll let our programmers
I'll put it
know.
out in the universe, and then you never know, things can
Well, we
happen.
did do the music of Hans Zimmer.
Yes.
Yes, which I
Yes.
hope you're at.
I was at that one
oh,
too,
good.
and I watched his concert when he was, I think, at Rod Laver
Yeah.
as well. I think, yeah.
What's your thoughts on Joe Hisaishi? Studio Ghibli?
I'm not very familiar with
Yeah.
that music.
Yes.
I need to spend a little bit of. I mean, I need to
yes.
spend a little bit of time with a little bit of music to get appreciation
Yes.
truly for it.
Yes.
It's good, but I
Yes.
just don't know if I need to be more exposed to it than to fully
Yes.
embrace it and appreciate it.
I will
Yeah.
I will say one thing that I'm picking up from what you were talking to me, which I think is an entree for a lot of people into classical music,
It is.
certainly
Yep.
is film music, right?
Exactly. That's
You
your.
know, yeah,
That's
exactly.
definitely been my
Yes,
entry point to classical
yes.
music. Yeah.
And like we did the music of John Williams.
Yes.
Like my God, everyone knows John
John
Williams,
Williams.
right?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure the soundtracks to most of the major iconic film,
Star Wars. Yep.
Star Wars, Indiana
Indiana
Jones.
Jones. Yeah.
We've done the music of John Williams at the Bowl, which went off. So
Yep.
we do 3 free concerts every year at the Sydney Myer Music Bowl.
Yep.
And basically they are for anyone to come along, sit down and enjoy the music of the MSO. So
Yeah.
we did John Williams for one of the free concerts. It was so popular.
Yeah.
I walked into the bowl again. This is just as COVID was kind of leaving, and I was like, my God. Melbourne is back. We did Carmina Burana,
Yep.
which people may know from a certain beer ad. Wonderful soundtrack, but really uplifting concert. So
Yeah.
John was such a big hit that we did it
You did
again,
it.
and
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
we brought in Hans Zimmer. We have MSO at the Movies series
Yep.
where we play,
I love that.
Star
Yeah.
Wars, Harry Potter.
I'm like the target audience for that.
You
I'm
are,
literally the target audience
because
for
you do
that.
film review, yeah.
I do movie reviews, but
Yes.
I mean, Electric Fields was phenomenal. But
Yes.
I don't know, it's one of those things because there's so many emotions when you listen to film music because you've watched those
Mm.
visuals and then it all comes rushing back. So there's different. But I also have
Yes.
appreciation for Bach as an example,
Yes. Yes.
and I'll be honest, I may not necessarily have appreciate every single complexity of the music and the depth of
Yes.
it, but I enjoy it and it gives me so much joy just to
Yes.
listen after some, it's one of those cultural footprints that we are better off as a generation to
Mm.
have it. So yeah, there's
Yes.
all kinds of things that like jazz again.
And we're doing actually this month we're doing Winter Marsalis.
Yeah.
Now I mean I am excited about Winter Marsalis because I love jazz.
Yeah.
I was in a jazz duo for a while, so I love jazz, and I am so excited to
Yep.
see Wynton Marsalis with the come and perform. So I think this is going back to what you said before about the MSO and the diversity of
Yep.
the MSO. When I go and talk to people about what we do, people are usually quite shocked at the breadth of
Yep.
offering that we have.
Yep.
So we do things like MSO at the Movies.
Yep.
We do Winter Marsalis.
Yep.
We do obviously the core classics,
Yeah.
but we have concerts for kids.
Yes.
Like
Yes. I mean, yeah.
yeah.
I've my friends took their kids to one of those.
Gems
they
for
did
juniors,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
classic kids. This is like you go in there and it's kids age 0 to 5, just with instruments, like
Yep.
playing on with an orchestra. We have regional tours. We go out to Geelong. We have a series in Geelong, but we also have learning. So
Yep.
we have, I guess, what is adult appreciation or adult
Oh.
learning. We have a concert series called Ears Wide Open, for example, which is like a song exploder for classical music.
Okay.
Orchestra's on stage, they'll play a bit. We have a presenter basically stopping and starting
Gotcha.
the
Yep.
orchestra, giving context, giving history. I've had people that honestly you'd go, you're not the normal classical, like sporty guys type thing, turn up to that going, this is the best thing ever. This
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
such a
No.
great piece. So, we've got kids, we've got education, we've got core classics, we've got all of these contemporary collaborations, we've got MSO at the Movies, we've got touring,
Yeah.
we've got steak knives. Joking. We've got everything. So it's kind of like when I do go and meet people and go, here's our offering, everyone's like, whoa, let me take it in.
I know. I think you have to. I mean, that's a very good point because I
Mm.
was going to say that I think there's so much going on, but perhaps not all of us are aware about it, and
Yeah.
that's maybe something to sort of take back. Like,
Absolutely.
yeah,
This is where the brand piece comes
comes
into
in.
play, right? When you've got such a breadth of offering, right? How do you own one particular thing?
Yeah,
You
but I
know,
think that's the beauty of
yeah,
it because
yeah.
it's the variety
Yes.
and the appreciation for all kinds of audiences.
Yes.
Unlike where say if you're in. I mean, I'm just again, this is a very generic comparison. Like in New York, there's this very niche audience for a certain type of like ballet, for instance, and only some people go, and they keep going, and they keep going,
Yes.
which is fantastic. But
Yes.
then, how do you give access to other people to that level of?
That's right.
Right.
How,
And,
how
and
do
I
we
like that about MSR, that it gives you
Totally.
that. Yeah.
Look, I mean, and we're still trying,
Yeah.
and we're still broadening our audience. I think the other thing is we've got incredible loyalists, people that have been there for decades and
Decades. Yeah.
decades.
Yeah.
I think there are people that have gotten engaged at the MSO that are still going.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I meet people that are bringing their granddaughters, along. So people who have had this amazing experience when they were a kid, they've, basically fostered a love of classical music
That's
all their
amazing.
life. They've passed that on to their kids. Their kids have passed it on to their grandkids. So I think one of the great things about the MSO is it's very family oriented and it's very multi generational. And, that's my own story,
Yeah.
right? Like my mother, played piano.
Yeah.
She, wanted to instill in me a love of music, so I learnt the piano and violin,
So,
and
you
learnt.
pass on through generations.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
I still remember viscerally, and this is why I find some of our kids' offerings are really important. The first time I ever went to a show, which was the Bolshoi Ballet's Swan Lake when I was 5 years old with my ballet school, and to this day I still have the program and I can still remember it. I still
Yeah.
remember the set.
Yeah.
I still remember the dancers. Like it's a moment that highly impacted me and stays with me. And I like to think that we at the MSO are creating that same memory for,
For a lot of it
yeah,
definitely
a
did
new
for me. I'm not
generation.
a kid, but
Yes.
uh, I I was telling a mate of mine immediately after we just got out of Hammer Hall and the concert, and I was
Mm.
like, and he was like, "How was it?" I'm like, "I've moved. I
Yeah.
haven't been moved by art, especially post pandemic, because
Yeah.
we everything
Yeah.
was we live in a different world then."
Yes.
And everybody, and it wasn't just me, everyone who came out of it, they were genuinely moved. Even if it was
Yes.
fleeting, it was
Yes.
important, it was euphoric. And I think
Yes.
that, to me, exemplifies the city and its love for arts and culture, and the importance of institutions like the Melbourne Symphony Orchestra.
Oh, thank you. I
Yeah,
just
absolutely.
love that feedback, and I love the fact that, what we hoped would happen
Yeah.
has happened.
Yes.
That's great.
That's awesome. Um, Now we almost running out of time. I think I could talk to you for a long
Oh my God,
time. I
I'm
know.
loving this. Like,
This is
seriously, have we got
awesome.
another hour? Like,
Yeah,
seriously.
we could. But you have to come back. But
No,
before
that's right.
we wrap up, there are a couple of questions I still want to ask.
Ooh,
Hopefully, I
sure
can.
for. Go for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you, from your own personal perspective, what do you think is the relationship between the Melbourne Symphony Orchestra, Art Centre, NGV, and perhaps Hammer Hall?
Yes.
These amazing platforms for artists and these amazing avenues for people to truly appreciate culture in the city
Mm.
with Melbourne itself. What's the relationship like,
Oh gosh.
and how important it is, do you think, for the city to have all these
Look,
avenues?
I think it's hugely important, right? Because one, there needs to be a diversity of art forms,
Yeah.
right? But I also think that the appetite of people is starting to become more, I guess, multi-artistic.
Yeah.
So when people want to go to a show, they want to experience multiple different art forms
Yeah.
in one particular setting.
Yeah.
So look, the great thing is we actually already have great relationships with the bulk of, those institutions. So we're a resident of Art Centre Melbourne, so
Yes.
Hamer Hall is our
Yes.
residency.
Yeah.
So we work really closely with Art
Okay.
Centre. And we also have in the past, I'm not sure if we're doing it at the moment, but we have had a partnership for many years with the NGV. So
Okay.
we actually do a couple of performances a year with the
Yes.
NGV.
Yeah.
And it's something that I would love to do. NGV, call me. No, no, I'd love
Please
to.
do. We want to. I mean, you have audiences for that, so
Please call me. No,
yes.
I have spoken to the NGV. It's something we would really like to do more of. I think our artistic team,
Yeah.
have driven that partnership. It's
Yeah.
something that is an artistic partnership that has been pushed
It's
forward
pushed.
by
Yeah.
them.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So I think one, it's really important. I think the proposed arts precinct that's being created by the government is just going to be so exciting because that physically is going to create a link to all of these artistic institutions that work together and
Yep.
orbit around each other.
Gotcha.
Like we're all within physical
With the correct
distance
proximity,
of
yeah.
each other.
Yeah.
It is going to create physically a connecting point, right? That people can explore art forms,
Yep.
right? you look at, for example, I'm from Queensland, so I've been an adopted Victorian since 2006. That's when I moved here. But in Brisbane, for example, the Arts Precinct has this really great flow-on effect. So you can
Okay.
start at Goma, you can walk through the State Library, which then leads you into the art gallery.
Yep.
So as someone that may have gone to a Goma exhibit, you can suddenly find yourself in the art gallery
Got
going,
you.
oh, I
Yeah, yeah,
didn't,
yeah.
expect to be there. And, I hope that the new arts precinct will have a similar physical feel, that it's going to be a bit more fluid,
Yeah.
that it's going to be a bit more explorative,
Yeah.
that people can come in and just explore, and that will also create a community space for people to collaborate. So I
Absolutely.
think it's going to be really exciting.
That's exciting.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And two questions we ask to all our guests.
Ooh.
What's your anthem song?
Ah, now, okay, anthem song or favorite song?
Anthem song. I mean, you could look. You could say
Yeah.
your favorite song too.
Look, I love the 60s. I'm obsessed with the decade of the 60s.
Yeah.
I just find it a fascinating period. My all time favourite song, well, both two songs, I guess, favourite and anthem, are both from the 60s. Favourite song of all time is California Dreaming by the Mums and Papas.
Okay.
As an ex choral singer, I love harmony,
Okay.
and the harmonies of the Mamas and Papas are just sublime.
Sure.
It's such a wonderful song. It's both bittersweet and joyful at the same time,
Yep.
well, bittersweet and hopeful at the same time.
Yep.
My anthem, because I'm a cynic or a pragmatist, as some people would say, is
You don't look like one,
I
but
am. Is the Rolling Stones? You can't always get what you want. I just think it's a really great
that's
motto
an
for
awesome
life.
song. That's
It
an
is.
awesome, awesome song.
Again, it starts with the choir, so I think you're going to see my choral influence coming through in my
Okay.
choices. But I think it's a really good lesson for life. You may not get what you want, but you get what you need,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
So
And
yes, those are my two picks.
awesome. They're
Yeah,
great. Great
thank
picks.
you.
And what's the one thing you love about living in Melbourne?
Oh well, look, as someone that came from Queensland, I guess the story that I can tell was the first weekend I arrived in Melbourne, which I think solidified my decision to move to Melbourne.
Yep.
I arrived. I was working with Channel 9, and I arrived for the Commonwealth Games.
Okay.
And I remember walking into the city for the first time, and I just could not believe the artistic vibrancy. Everywhere I looked, something was happening. I still remember, like I'm looking at it now, standing outside of ACM and seeing this amazing art kind of performance exhibition on the wall of the
Yep.
NGV, and it was the moment that I went, I am in my right place. I think just the fact that I could walk around and feel the culture,
Yep.
could see the culture,
Yep.
that's what I love about Melbourne. There's always something to do. There's always something to explore.
Yep.
You will never get tired in Melbourne.
Yep.
But I think the fact that Melbourne takes risks culturally
Yes.
is exciting.
Yep.
And that's what I really like.
And I think that's a profound thing. I think, firstly, congratulations on
Oh,
everything that you've achieved.
thank you. That's so nice.
That's really, really commendable,
Oh,
if I may say so.
what a lovely thing to say. Thank you.
And I think what you do is important. And I say
Mm.
this because if the one thing that distilled during the pandemic was that the only thing when we were all locked in our houses and there was panic and fear and everything around, the only thing that kept us going was arts. It
Yeah.
consumed us, it engaged us, it
Yes.
informed us,
Yes.
and it made us happy. And in
Yes.
any form, whether it was music or movies or paintings or books, arts truly is important. And I think, for me personally, I think everything that MSO and all the other, artistic endeavors that comes out of that is critical to the fabric of the city. And I genuinely mean it. I'm not saying this because I just, have enjoyed the music and stuff like that, because it really defines us and as a city, and it also informs us about a lot of different ways to appreciate diversity, inclusiveness, and importantly, talent.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. And the thing that I will say is art always pushes you to think about new things.
Yep.
It exposes you to new things, and it pushes you to think about new things.
Yep.
Now, these can either be political issues or societal issues, or
Yeah.
just, pushing you to self-analyze,
Correct. Gives you
situations.
perspective.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
gives you absolute perspective. And
Yeah.
I think this is why I love the arts.
Yeah. So we
Oh.
end the show with our final cheers to
Cheers.
arts. And
Thank
thank you
you.
so much, Jay, for coming.
Oh.
I really appreciate it. I enjoyed this conversation.
No, thank you so
and,
much.
you might have to come back and
Oh.
talk more for the next season if we have one.
I would love to. Thank you so much. I've had a great time today.
We'll cheers to that. We would like to thank our sponsors, Construct Mart and Flows Trading and Clearance Center, and also let you know that this podcast has been recorded from Image Online Studio in Abbotsford. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening, and please remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel and also follow us on Instagram at Let's Talk Melbourne.